So there are your four horsemen this morning. Generally speaking, when we hear of Revelation, we usually get those images of those four horsemen, right? You've all seen them. We are now at the beginning of the, shall we say, the seals, the visions, if you will. What we've seen up so far is last week, the last chapter, I should say, a vision of worship. Before that, we had the messages to the churches. Now we're getting to the area of the prophecy of what's going to happen. It's a little more controversial, but I actually believe it's got a lot more practical application to us than maybe what we've thought. So we're looking forward to getting into these parts as well. Who here has a question from this morning? Yeah, John.
We had, in the previous chapter, maybe two, we studied that there are four living creatures. And each one of those creatures is the one that introduces a horse. Have you studied or do you have an opinion about why the correspondence of the creatures with the horse?
I don't have an opinion on that, but it's very clear that all four creatures announce a different horse. It certainly looks that way. And I have not been able to figure out the significance of that. John Calvin doesn't comment on Revelation, but what I did is I studied him on Zechariah chapter 1 because I figured that's the closest I'm going to get to him on Revelation because he doesn't comment on Revelation. And what he does with Zechariah 1 is, this is hard stuff for me. He says some people get too deep into the Zechariah because they're trying to make something happen with every single word, and you can't do it. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that. It seems to me that there's significance in there because John is very clear that the creature is the one that says, come and see, and it's a different creature each time. I just have not been able to understand the significance of that. Maybe somebody else has. I have not been able to do it. And the guys I've read, they haven't been able to do it either. There has to be something there, though, I think, because it says, I mean, John didn't have to say the living creature said, come and see each time. He could have just told us, but he doesn't do that. Once again, we're dealing with animals, lots of them. Now that I've told you more of what I don't know, that's actually a pretty big subject. Yeah.
There's a comment about destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 when the various factions turned on one another. One of the things in their civil war that they were dealing with and taking place in Jerusalem is that they destroyed their wheat. They had stored up enough wheat to withstand siege, but they burned it. So they starved in the city because one faction burned the stores. Talk about removing peace. That led directly to the famine.
Yeah. If you get a chance, this is a Penguin classic. This is a book I borrowed from John Bingaman and have not yet returned. But, yeah, how about that? But if this is not boring reading. This is history that's just full of blood and thunder, if you will. And I mean, it's difficult reading, but it's not boring. If you get a boring history book, don't read it, by the way. There's enough history that's interesting to read. Read that. And this is Josephus, and this talks about these Jewish wars, and it talks about that which we don't talk about very much. Unfortunately, our Christian history is really kind of dead between 30 A.D. and 70 A.D. None of us know what, we just don't study that, and we should. And we don't have a whole lot of sources, but Josephus tells us what was going on. And we need to understand that when they rejected Christ, they introduced to themselves, the Jewish people, bloodshed and war and famine and destruction. Which, madness is true. There's no other way to explain what happened within Jerusalem. Madness. Destroying, again, your own wheat. Destroying other people who could defend the city against the Romans. Clearly, the Jews, if they would have just been unified, could have easily defended themselves against the Romans for years. But you had Jewish people attacking each other. Masada, for example. Many of you know about Masada, that fortress built in the deserts. But what we don't know so much, and Josephus points out, was that those folks in Masada, we see them as the besieged. But what we don't know is that they came out of their fortress at Masada and they attacked. Now, you would think they attacked the Romans, right? They attacked their other Jewish neighbors. And the other Jewish neighbors were in fear of those holed up in Masada, called the Sicarii. It's just, the madness is beyond, human description or capability to understand. I believe it's just exactly, as I said, just exactly what we saw happening with those horsemen. Yeah.
So, in that disagreement over whether it's the Antichrist or Christ on the white horse, how does that relate to, or what's the motivation maybe behind those two different ways of taking it? Maybe how does it relate to, say, the 4 different systems of interpretation or revelation?
Yeah. Question being, how does Christ versus Antichrist, how does that relate? And of course, I would have to say it relates this way. If you, and I'm not sure what always comes first here, the chicken or the egg necessarily, but if you believe that there's no hope for the earth, shall we say, then there's no other, the earth is it's going south, the gospel's shrinking, things get worse and worse. Then I think you're stuck with a Antichrist picture of the horseman there. If, however, you believe that Christ conquers his enemies in history, I think consistent with 1 Corinthians 15, for example, and Psalm 110, then you believe the other way. What I'm saying is I think you bring a system of interpretation to it, and the system of interpretation, what you believe in history, has to tell you the identity of that first horseman, if that makes sense. In other words, your interpretation, the big picture that you bring tells you the small picture of the identity. I just don't think, personally, from the white horse in Revelation 19, I just don't think you can have another being there. The problem for me, one of the problems with with what I would call the dispensational system, one of the problems for me is they need 2 of everything. For example, you need a revived Roman Empire, for example. You have the stone hitting the Roman Empire in history. Well, you need another one. And that's been a problem for years because they need a revived European Empire, Roman Empire, and for years it's been the European Common Market. Anybody hear that one before? So the European Common Market, which now has about 25 countries. So they have to get it down to 10, for the 10 toes or whatever. And so you need 2 Roman Empire, you need 2 of everything. And in this case, you need two white horses. And you need 2 Christs, kind of, an Antichrist and a Christ. I just don't think you can do that here. It's just too much. Yes?
On that verse, the crown that was given to him, there are several words for crown in the Greek, and this one is Stephanos, which is the victor's crown. Even for the dispensationalists, the people who hold the futurist view, they don't believe that ultimately the Antichrist is victorious.
Right.
So it's
he ultimately is defeated in history.
Right. And so to have the Stephanos crown, the victor's crown, isn't consistent. Just another point on that. So another thing pointing to Christ.
Yeah. The Antichrist is, you'd have to say, he's probably the biggest loser in history, right? Definitely not a victor in that system.
If there is an Antichrist.
Yeah, or the Antichrist or whatever.
Martin Silbridi kind of has taught that the Antichrist, when you study John, who's the one who brought up the term,
Right.
that John actually destroys the argument that there is one Antichrist.
Right.
That there are many even so, there are many Antichrists.
Says it. Yep.
Even so, in his previous teaching about Antichrist, it's not the Antichrist, it's Antichrist.
Right.
Even so, there are many Antichrists. Anybody who is against Christ is an Antichrist, is Antichrist.
It's a term that I would like to see us use more often in Christendom, quite frankly, Antichrist. But we've taken the term away because of our interpretation of Revelation is what we've done. So we made the beast. Now John's very clear, they're the beast in Revelation, but he doesn't use the term the Antichrist. The beast he uses. We've introduced that. Yeah, we put the two together. Antichrist is a good term. It should be applied to many institutions, and is not, quite frankly. Yeah. Public schools is a good start, but not a good ending. Well, yeah, yes, Jim.
This all makes sense, but I'm trying to anticipate objections and so forth. In this interpretation, what is the relationship between the first horse and the second, third, and fourth horses?
Yeah, and perhaps I was not as clear on that as I would like to have been, but I think the relationship is demonstrated for us actually in Zechariah 1. I want to turn back to your question. How many of you have ever, when hearing a sermon on the four horsemen, I'm sure you've heard some, have ever heard it actually related to the other horses in Zechariah 1? John has? Good. Most of you have not. See, I think what's happening here is the relationship between the two is that in Zechariah 1, we see the earth at peace, and this is a bad thing. This is not a good thing. This is a bad thing. And so what's happening is these horses are the servants of Christ the King. He's on a horse, but he's sending these other horses out to destroy the peace of the earth, which is not a good peace. And I think that's what's happening because, again, you have in Zechariah 1, God says, these nations are at ease, and it's not a good thing. I'm going to destroy this peace. This is how I'm going to do it. Again, it's hard for us to get this. For peace, for us, we all, anybody lived through the 60s like I did, who could argue with the peaceniks out there with their peace symbols, right? Their long hair and their long beards and their free love. All they wanted was peace, right? Well, their peace was a peace of wickedness, and their peace has given us war, quite frankly. War in the home. Some peace. We got nothing but war from those folks. And so I think that what's happening here is that peace which is being destroyed goes back to Zechariah chapter 1. It's a peace with which Christ is not pleased, and he's going to destroy that peace as he conquers in his own name.
You say that Christ on the white horse is using the second, third, and fourth horses as tools of judgment.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yep. That's how I see the relationship between the horses. Yes, Conrad.
We don't see any problem with having the lamb being the one opening the seal and going out on the horse at the same time.
Yeah, I know. It's the lamb opens and then the lamb opens and then he himself is on the white horse. And the answer is, I guess after a sermon like that, I guess I can't have much of a problem with that. How am I going to do it? I actually think, though, that we see this similar language later on. We see a seal open, and we see the earth harvested, and it seems like it's Christ doing the harvesting there as well. So I think we see that picture in other points as we study it. We see the same type of thing where I think it's even more clear. Well, I think this is clear, but I think that the other case is even more clear. We'll see that, especially when Christ harvests the earth. Yes?
And on that point, Conrad, I don't see any contradiction. The Lamb opens the scroll that's talking about him. That's okay. I mean, the whole of the Revelation speaks of Christ. He's the only one worthy of opening the scroll to reveal all this to us, reveal the revelation. And it's going to talk about him. I don't see that that would be a contradiction at all.
Unless it's literal. I mean, like, that's the thing.
So, yeah.
Unless it's literal, that's the only time you'd have a contradiction. Because if it's literally somebody on a horse, if it's literally Jesus on a horse, he literally can't be a lamb, and he literally can't be standing there reading it out himself while he's riding on a horse.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why I think we just have to take in the symbology of it.
Right. Yeah, again, these are signs. It says that for me, he signified these by his servant John. I think we kind of, again, I think that's already kind of dealt with. Behold, the lion can open the lambs. Then John looks at it and he looks like a lamb. Well, can he, if it's literal, it can't be a lion. I mean, those are two animals that can't be definitely the same. Maybe we can mix a lion and a tiger. Can't mix a lion and a lamb. Easily. That would be one for the artist to do. That would be a challenge. You have to be extremely creative artists to do that one. Well, thank you for your kind attention here this morning.